Hi, Michael Dr. T. Tequila here, and today I spoke with Angela Marcus. She is the co-founder and pet lover-in-chief, as she calls herself, of GetYourPet.com. It is a wonderful new model of bypassing a shelter so that a pet will not have to stay in any sort of situation. It doesn't matter how great the shelter is, and I love many shelters out there, but it is stressful for a pet to be there. So if certain circumstances or unfortunate circumstances lead you as a pet owner, you have to relinquish your pet, there is an opportunity to link up with someone who wants to adopt a pet, and that's what GetYourPet.com creates for you. It's a great conversation. She's a wonderful individual. Take a look. What really intrigued me was reading the history of this Get Your Pet. And so for our listening audience, would you mind just telling them how you got interested, in just animals in general, and then what things led you down the path to do what you're doing now?
Sure. Yeah. I've always loved animals, right? And I think a lot of us can agree with that. I've loved animals since I was a child, and I always convinced myself that I was going to go to school to be a veterinarian. So, I started that journey with my undergraduate work. But once I finished college and started looking at veterinary school, I kind of wasn't sure where I saw myself as a veterinarian. Was I going to work emergency? Was I going to work private practice? Where was I going to fit in? And I started hearing about this thing called shelter medicine. So I went and applied for a job at the Pennsylvania SPCA in Philadelphia, and I was lucky enough to be hired. It's hired as a part-time technician, very low on the totem pole, as it were.
Cleaning the cages to start, I guess, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, that really opened my eyes to the world of animal welfare and animal sheltering and some of the things that were happening there. So over the next 6 years, I was lucky enough to sort of work my way to the top. I became the operations director and really was responsible for all of our life-saving efforts, our veterinary services. We had an on-site clinic, and we did, roughly 10,000 spay and neuter surgeries a year. So it was a pretty sizable organization, and we also one of our primary focuses, was on humane law enforcement. So I really got to see every piece of the puzzle. I got to see how pets were coming into the shelter. I got to see how they were leaving the shelter. And every day someone was coming to the shelter saying, I need to find my pet a home. And I was saying, even though we're doing our best, you don't want to bring them here. This is not the place for any pet that has someone who cares about him or her. Because I knew, we had disease. We did the best we could. We had great cleaning protocols. We followed all of the standard recommendations. But just like people, when pets get sick or when pets get stressed, they get sick. And so we had disease, and the stress level was ridiculous. Even though we had these dedicated volunteers who were coming to walk the dogs, they were still living in a cage 24 hours a day, right? There's no sugarcoating this. So I thought, why does every pet that need a new home need to go to a shelter? And they just don't. Especially when, within the same day of somebody coming to the front door and saying, I need to find my pet a new home, someone was coming in saying, I want to adopt a pet. And I want to adopt a pet just like that one. And I thought, wow, there's got to be an opportunity here. Especially given the world we're living in. You don't get into someone, you don't call a taxi anymore, you get into someone else's car, right? So this whole concept of the shared economy, that we could kind of put somebody together with someone who has something and somebody who wants something and make a match and enable people to do the right thing. And as a result, really unburden shelters and give them the opportunity to reallocate their hard-earned donor dollars and resources on the pets that have no other advocates. So I thought, you know what, I'm going to give it a go. So that's sort of how GetYourPet.com and the idea was born. Thank you so much for having me.